Welcome to Look at That, where we don't just watch things, we see and break things down with a fully remembered perspective. I got a short but brief clip today for you guys discussing. Here you go, check this out.
Dueling brought up a really good point, and that is anticipating an appeal, like we heard about in the New Mexico case, even all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. You and I have these conversations about how oftentimes in these court cases, things really get cemented by definition. The U.S. Supreme Court may actually end up being a part of cementing in some definitions, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And this case and yesterday's verdict, obviously watershed, not really, let's be honest, Reed, for the dollar amount, $3 million, is a drop in the bucket for Meta and YouTube. And I can tell you they spent a lot more than $3 million defending this case. And the reason they did is the point that you've been making. It's for the press, the plaintiffs out there all over the country saying, I was affected by these products. I too could win a lawsuit of this nature, and it incentivizes these companies to settle or to maybe change their tactics when they see their bottom line sort of coming into play here. The rule of thumb really is that the law catches up to society about 10 years later, and so I think we've all known for at least a decade that social media is not good for children, for their mental health, and the studies are bearing that out now. But now we're seeing it sort of trickle into the court system, and you're seeing novel, new ways of trying to find liability. So the New Mexico case was a products liability case. This case was a different theory based on, like a negligent and unconscionable way to go about business practices. So there's a lot of new law being made. The question is, when will the legislature step in to
Relative to the content on these platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't an issue today, but certainly yesterday in the New Mexico case, what was at issue there, what the defense there was essentially there is a statute, a regulation indicating that platforms like these are responsible for the content that its users put out. So it plays into really a First Amendment right. But we saw really a breakdown of that statute yesterday in this verdict because the jury ruled that they engaged in unconscionable practices in ignoring that content, right? They were aware that there were predators using their platforms to endanger children and that they willfully ignored it. So today's verdict, again, not about that content, but about the way that this product is engineered, and it's knowingly, Reed. Okay, it's not that they just turned a blind eye to it or didn't know about it. It's that they actively understood that, and they were taking advantage of young people's sort of inexperience, their sort of underdeveloped brains, and they're rewiring really that interplay. And so when you have these endless scroll features, they know that that's an addictive feature because they want to keep eyeballs on their product. So I think again we're seeing a lot play out in this field. The legal sphere is catching up with sort of the society at large in terms of what we're seeing based on a scientific level.
Okay, we're going to keep this shot up as we look at the television. Can we put that shot back up, guys, outside the courtroom? Caroline, aside from the decision,
a plaintiff to talk to you to see what really worked. I mean, I would be willing to bet that these companies put together mock trials and then interviewed those mock jurors to see what resonated with the jury. And so that is really, I mean, for sure, there are going to be more cases like this. And so if the defense and the prosecution can glean any information from those jurors, absolutely they will want to get that information. And I would think that in a trial, of this substantial nature, that you would get at least some jurors willing to give interviews, willing to talk about, what their thought process.
whether they know it or not, they have nudged the needle and nudged the world a little bit with their decision. Once again, if you're just tuning in or watching live in the palm of your hand, Meta and YouTube found liable on all charges in that landmark social media addiction trial. Caroline Polisi, you make me smarter and walk taller whenever I'm with you. I appreciate you so much.
Now you see, look at that. Jury just said Meta and YouTube responsible for harming kids mentally. Not influencers, not parents, the platform itself. See? So let's just talk about the facts on this KGM case. Los Angeles jury found Meta, Instagram, and YouTube Google negligent and awarded $6 million in total damages. This was the case centered around a young woman known as KGM. So allegedly, she started YouTube at age 6 and Instagram at age 9, lawyers argue. Platforms hooked her early and created addiction, also worsened depression and mental health. Here's the key. Jury said the platforms were designed in a negligent way and failed to warn users about risks. But let's see what actually happened. That they didn't say social media is dangerous. They said the design is the problem. So that's key when we're dealing with this lawsuit. They're not actually coming at the platform itself. They saying that like basically how y'all run y'all business. This is not just one case. This is what they call a bellwether trial, meaning they have over 1,000 similar lawsuits lined up. So this is basically, let's see if the legal strategy works type of thing. Basically, if it do work, every platform could get sued the same way as Google and Meta. Or Google and Instagram. Yeah. It's pretty interesting strategy because the way they trying to play it is like how when we had, people trying to sue big tobacco. They arguing that it's an addictive product. Platforms like, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, they saying that these are addictive. Just like, and they comparing it to cigarettes and opioids. Y'all write in the comments what y'all think about that. Is it addictive to the extent of cigarettes and opioids? Even though they saying all this good stuff, it doesn't actually prove nothing, because if you're feeling that bad, just log off, right? So even though they awarded this young girl $6 million, chances of somebody winning this again probably will be, kind of slim to none due to the fact that they're going to say you could just log off, especially if you over the age of 12 or 13. She's basically saying they've been influencing her since 6, which brings up another question, like where was her parents? You know what I'm saying? Right, exactly. Just because you use it, that don't mean it causes the problem. Just because you was on the YouTube, don't mean that was the cause of why you upset that day. It shouldn't be that deep, They were really crashing out. I find myself crashing out, not for nothing, So it does happen, but when you start letting it affect you to an extent where you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't rest, you can't think straight, that's when you need to chill out. The real reason why they lost that lawsuit was because they were able to win with the arguments of the infinite scroll, the autoplay, and being able to target certain algorithms that they knew would, be in rotation. And this was being framed as addiction engineering. The jury basically was saying, y'all knew what y'all was doing. Y'all knew what y'all was doing and didn't warn the kids. So, yeah. But the shock value on this is, I think most people are surprised that people are actually suing these social media platforms. Like, is this a real crisis or is this the new wave to get money, basically? Y'all saying she started at 6 and all this stuff, but like I just said, where was the parents? And if y'all not really suing the app, but the psychology behind the app, still, where is the parents? Because they should still be able to control how many hours a day you spending on that app. I think they do have control in kid-friendly settings that it'll log you off if you on there for so long. The parents should be reinforcing that, not the big tech companies. I do think it's personal accountability, because if I control my kids watching, then there's really no access to that and to those social media platforms. But if they do so happen to be on there, of course I don't want my child talking to no creep or no PDF file. So I do kind of get both sides. No, this ain't just about one girl or one lawsuit or one company. This is the moment where the world is deciding, is social media a tool or a product designed to control you? Because like I said, society will look for any scapegoat to blame for its ills and be like, no, well, if we wasn't on social media, if people wasn't on their phone, which would probably be the same problems, even if they weren't on their phone. Now it'd probably be more active, because instead of me texting you, I'll be trying to find you and get to you. So, I mean, in both ways, social media kind of is, I would say, a cushion for a lot of stuff that could happen. But at the same time, it does get blamed because that's our biggest influence right now in society. You know, it's a click of a button away. It's easy to access. But when you start letting it control how you think and move and behave and how you treat others around you, I think that's your problem. And even a lot of people that do suffer real life addiction, like to heavy drugs and stuff, they'll tell you, man, it's my behavior, it's my attitude that led me to this drug, not the actual drug. So if you just take that with a grain of salt, you'll see that this is probably just a little scam they running, man. You know, we had to, not for nothing, when we was younger like this girl, 6 and 9, the most we could do, because we didn't have social media, was sneak and watch the dirty channels. Not for nothing. We wasn't saying coming back 10 years later, trying to sue the Spice Channel, talking about, man, they ruined my life, or they made me into a sex addict. Nah, man, they would have looked at us like we was fucking stone nuts, excuse my language. You know what I'm saying? So people gotta look at this shit is trolling, man. She just came out of it with $6 million. You know, realistically, probably only 3, because after she paid her lawyer fee and all of that other stuff. But still, man, she walked away with a cool 3 mil. Put in the chat, man, was this a cold scandal piece? Or was that girl really mentally affected from these platforms? Y'all let me know. Talk to me. And thank you for hanging out with me at another episode of Look at That. I'm going to be coming with more interesting topics. Sorry if I was long-winded, but I just wanted to touch on this concept and this, this topic. You know, people doing anything to try to get some money, man. I can't really say I'm mad at they hustle, especially considering how hard it is to come by a dollar. So shit, once you figure out your niche, shit, who wouldn't, So y'all just let me know in the comments, is social media really a threat to these kids? Or is it lack of, judgment from the parents? Not being able, not even being involved in their kids' life to know what they doing. So y'all let me know in the chat or in the comments. I appreciate y'all. Terra Firm T says, salute, much love, peace and wisdom.